It's December 11th, and welcome to episode 111. That's a lot of 11s of the Driving Forward podcast. Whether you're joining us live or listening on one of our 18 platforms, including Wreaths Across America Radio, where we broadcast every Tuesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time, we appreciate your support. Next week, we have the GLCS crew on, wrapping up the year. It's been a long time since we've had anybody on from the team other than, I think Bain and Susan have been on a few times, but we got a few other people on. So we'll see if Michael Demers decides to throw on his smoking jacket again. I think we saw that last time. We'll have Ed Streeter on as well. We're gonna unpack him. I'm not even sure. We started talking about what we're going to talk about. I think it's where we go. This will be our last live episode of the year. Going after this, every episode every Thursday lands on a holiday. So this is the last live episode of the year, and that's kind of crazy to think that 2025 is wrapping up. Tonight, the Great Freight Gathering at the Forgotten Star Brewery in Fridley, Minnesota. Swing on by, have a cocktail or two, and visit with us. We'd love to see you. We'll put a link for sign up in the comments. So if you're in the Minneapolis area, we're doing this once a month. They're getting bigger every time, better every time. Next month, we're doing mocktails. I don't remember exactly where at yet, but we'd love to have you come by, talk about the holidays. Unfortunately, I'm actually not going to be there. We're headed to a wedding, so this will be the first one I miss, but we'd love to see you there. Saturday, December 13th is Wreaths Across America Day. If you're able to join at your local cemetery, please do so. Otherwise, if you're able to donate, you can do so at any time at wreathsacrossamerica.org. Please be a part of this organization and help us with the mission to remember, honor, and teach. Also this weekend, it is going to be freaking cold here in Minnesota. I was just talking to Chris Sonic, and he says he's going to be out at Fort Snelling. So I appreciate you, Chris. I appreciate everybody that's going to be out at Fort Snelling. It's supposed to be 17 below. And yeah, I just saw Jeremy's response to that. That's the right response. So that's freaking cold, and you know that's nasty to be out there laying wreaths. But I appreciate everybody out there. I would be out there if I was in town. So I feel bad I'm not out there. So Manifest 2026 is going to be upon us in no time. February 9th through the 11th at the Venetian Resort and Casino. We're expecting 7,000 plus people, including 2,000 shippers, 1,500 startups, investors, 400 speakers, over 60 countries represented this year. We're putting up an event February 9th. That's Monday, February 9th, between 7 to 10 p.m. It's at 1923. It's a speakeasy. So we'll put the event up. I think we have an Eventbrite for it. We're just building out a few things. We're going to have some cool social media rolling out here soon. We're also going to put up a code for $200 off the Manifest tickets as well. So if you haven't purchased your tickets to Manifest, we'd love to have you use our code to do so. Get a couple $100 off the retail on that one. So picture one driver in your world. The closer, the fixer, the one you call when it's ugly and you need a miracle. Now picture that same driver never seeing 65. Not because of a wreck, not because they screwed up, just because the job quietly took them out. That's not a scare tactic. That's just the reality of the job. In trucking, the average driver doesn't even make it to 62. We've built an industry on the backs of people who are giving up 15 to 20 years of their life. So freight keeps moving, and the rest of us hit our numbers. Today, we're talking about Project 61. This episode is for everybody in this game: owners, office staff, drivers, tech vendors, 3PLs, brokers. If your paycheck depends on trucks moving, this is your problem too. We're going to talk about why drivers are dying too young, what actually works when you do not have a gym, a normal schedule, or a perfect diet, and whether this industry really means it when they say drivers are essential. This isn't a wellness poster. This is a line in the sand. We have on Jeremy Reymer. He's been on before. The last time Project 61 was launching, and it was the first Step Up Challenge about a year ago. But trust me, I see Jeremy all over the place all year long, and he's been representing Project 61 mission everywhere he goes. And joining us for the first time is Dr. Mark Manera. He started as a physical therapist, treating busted up drivers one at a time, and now he's the president and chief operating officer at Project 61, turning that experience into real tools built for people who live and eat who live in a truck and eat at truck stops and sleep in parking lots. So, Jeremy, Dr. Mark, welcome to Driving Forward.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. It's great to have you both on. It hasn't been that long since I've seen you. So, Mark, it's been a short period of time. Jeremy, it's been about a month. So,
yeah.
But yeah, either way, it's great to see you both.
And thank you, by the way, not only for allowing us to be here, but just for your support. You personally, you and just the GLCS team, your support for driver health is sincerely appreciated.
Absolutely. It's the least we can do. We actually would love to support more. So I'm sure there's lots of people that want to do that more as well. So I'm a former driver myself. I still identify. I say this all the time. I still identify as a driver. So, I that's probably why I love going to truck shows and whatnot, even though, we don't have a lot to do with some of that stuff. But I love the truck tech. I love talking to drivers. I love working with them as much as I can. But it's near and dear to my heart. So, Jeremy, you've been on before, but a lot's changed over the last year. You've definitely established the program. So catch us up. What's things looking like now, and where's Project 61 at?
Well, mid-year, Project 61 was fortunate enough to be able to partner with Dr. Mark Manera and his company, Offshift, that he had founded, a trucking-specific mobile health and wellness app, right, specifically for drivers. And so that partnership is what really sort of allowed Project 61 to blossom. That plus the an exit that I had from a previous company that sort of unshackled me and gave me the sort of freedom and flexibility to really lean in to Project 61, to this mission, to this movement. So from that standpoint, it's exciting because we've made so much progress just since the end of July when that transaction, the acquisition of Offshift, was finalized, and working closely with Mark through the rest of the year, culminating in what is currently underway, the 61-day step challenge within the Offshift app, which is a lot of fun because you've got a couple thousand people, mostly drivers, as well as, somewhere over 100 different fleets that are participating in the program too. So that's a lot of fun. We're making a lot of progress.
No, that's it's a lot more people this year. I have to say, it took me a minute to figure out which app we were on. So, and I've shifted up some of my focus this year. So I'm not as competitive on it this year as I was last year. But
it makes two of us.
I'm still
not doing well.
I'm not doing well, but I'm still moving. So I'm just moving differently. So, so Mark, first time on the show. A lot of people know you, but for people that haven't that don't know you, give us a brief story on who you are and how you ended up here.
Yeah, well, there's a unique story of how I ended up on in the trucking industry and I guess on this podcast and working with Project 61. I don't come from trucking. 5.5 years ago, didn't know a single person in the trucking industry, in the supply chain at all. I was working as a physical therapist in St. Louis. And walked in, as you mentioned in the intro, a bunch of truck drivers. And it was kind of the first time as I was rehabbing them that I got to know them on a personal level, but also first time seeing what 20, 30 years behind the wheel can do to someone's health. And it just threw me down this rabbit hole. I'm a little bit of a research nerd. So I was digging into like the statistics and health of drivers and, hearing their stories, but then also seeing the research and the fact that, truck drivers have the highest rates of obesity and diabetes among any other occupation. And, the trickle down and the reason why Project 61, is named Project 61, and the fact that a truck driver has a life expectancy of 61 years old. And I just, deep down in my heart, don't believe anyone's career should define their health. But like, as I was looking at it, and then the first couple of years in the industry, I was getting my MBA in trucking and just kind of getting to know the industry at every single level, it became really obvious to me that that's exactly what's happening. And, the people who are coming in and getting their CDL are put into this, culture right now of the industry that they have to really seriously, intentionally fight back for it to not impact their health. And I started working with more and more trucking companies, saw a really big opportunity to build a driver-specific health program, because a lot of the other solutions, actually every single other solution out there, was built for someone who works in a cubicle. And then trucking companies were kind of just handcuffed to say, well, I'm going to give that to my drivers because there's nothing else out there. And so I built the first digital health company specifically focused on trucking, helping drivers exercise in the back of their truck, eat healthier at the truck stop, or even McDonald's attached to it, and really like meeting them where they're at out on the road. And we did that for a couple of years. And Jeremy and I have just been friends probably since I got into the industry. And we earlier this year looked at each other and we're like, hey, we're going after the same problem. We're just kind of rowing the boat in the same direction, but in two different boats. If we hop in the same one, we can go further and faster together. And so I think it was end of July this year, Project 61 acquired my company Offshift. And we took the program that I was going out and selling to trucking companies and now are giving it away completely for free. And it's been really exciting because it turns out in this freight market, free is the right price. Trucking companies, they love that fact. And really it was a bigger thesis around, if we're going to solve that 61 number, we have to make it accessible, and we have to be able to leverage technology, which we had built, and we have to then make it accessible. And we can't just make it accessible to the drivers who companies raise their hand and say, all right, we're going to pay for it, but we have to make it accessible and free to anyone. And that's really now, how do we position Project 61 going into 2026, where we can just turn up the volume and just help as many drivers as we can?
No, I appreciate that. It's actually become one of my talking points. I've probably been in 25 carriers or somewhere thereabouts in the last 30 to 45 days. And no offense, but 0 of them have heard of you. So, yeah. Which is
that's an opportunity.
That just tells you. But to that point, certain organizations will go out there and no one hears of us either. We've been around 10 years. And so if, these are our customers, but to that point, the message can get out, and some of them are larger organizations. I shouldn't say no one, the people that were in the conference room with me hadn't heard of you. So, potentially the safety groups and whatnot would have, but these are typically the executive teams, but there's ears perking up when you start talking about it. And that's, so why they may not transact on a one-on-one basis, they may donate to a cause. Mm-hmm. And that's the discussion that was had sitting around a conference room. And that might take a little time to build up that, but I mean, it's hard to sit across the boardroom from a CEO of 1,000 truck fleet and say, can you get behind this cause? And they have 1,000 drivers that work for them. Of course, they're going to get behind that cause. So I think that that's a good move going forward, and it probably will work well for the ideal. So, so Jeremy, when you decided, so you spent most of your career in recruiting, what was the idea to go towards driver health? And I mean, what the pivot there, it's not, one can see how it connects because you obviously are working a lot with drivers, but can you tell us that story a little bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, it wouldn't have happened probably if that average life expectancy was even in the early 70s,
Sure.
I mean, but it's so glaringly obvious if you even try to pay attention that, it's easy to see. And as a former, owner of a company who had 500 full-time and part-time drivers for 15 years, I mean, I saw it firsthand. I just didn't know that I would be called, to do something about it, or to at least try to make a difference towards that. And, it probably took me growing up a little bit, aging myself and having kids and having this perspective of what matters most. And then recognizing, hey, I need to make some better decisions for myself in terms of, what I eat, don't eat, movement and sleep and those sorts of things, because I want to see my kids grow up. I want to see that, and I want to be healthy. I've got a father who just turned 80 this year. He's not in good health. I don't want to be there, and so now is the time. And it's almost never too late, but you got to make different decisions. You got to be more intentional. And then as I was doing that for myself, you sort of focus towards this industry that has been so good to me, to you, so many of us who've committed our lives to it. I want to be a part of the solution. And I think it's important to say a part of it because I'm just one. This is a big, big thing to change, right? A lot of people. And so, Mark and I together, it's not us. It's all of us. You are a factor and contributor. There are so many people across the industry who are supportive on the carrier side, on the vendor side, from all corners. And that means a lot. That shows that we are striking a chord, that it matters. And if for no other reason, the carriers out there that you're sitting in the conference room that you were talking about, they know their health insurance costs and work comp risk, it continues to go through the roof. And if for no other reason, forget humanity and the right thing to do, that is a significant reason why to embrace taking care of your drivers and investing in their preventative maintenance.
I mean, that's the business case, but I mean, you guys have probably looked into how long does it take to turn this ship? I mean, obviously it has quick benefit, but before you're going to actually see the KPI here move, I mean, are we going to have to wait a generation? This is one, it's going to take a while to see 61 turn to 62.
You got to get them early and often, right? Every new entrant coming into the industry, and that's something that we might touch on some of the things that we're doing from that perspective in terms of videos and partnership with Next Generation in Trucking, the great work that they're doing. So you got to get them there, but then you also have people who they need help today, yesterday.
Yes.
Right? So it's getting with those drivers and working backwards, making sure that they've got the proper medical attention that they need. Make sure that if they're on medicine, that they're taking it. And then make sure that they're doing the things that some of the habits that they can just build on a daily basis. And within a number of weeks and months, you can start to see and feel a significant difference in your life if you just be intentional and stick with those habits. They're good habits.
Well, and what I'd also add to that is, you get a driver moving, you get them eating healthier, and you get them a better night's sleep, and the next day they're less likely to have a crash and cause a whole lot of costs for a trucking company. And that's a soft ROI that's hard to, it's kind of like, how do you show how many heart attacks we've prevented? I don't know that answer, right? I think the whole digital healthcare world has struggled to answer that. But what I can tell you, and really what we're trying to position is like, with the free program, with making it accessible, with saying, hey, Project 61 is this movement and we're a nonprofit. it's not like you got to say, okay, how much are we spending here? And is it going to show on, are we going to get an ROI more than the cost of the program? Because we know if we're helping drivers be healthier, you're going to get a better ROI than zero. Right. And also donations and helping support that. But regardless, yeah.
Yeah, no, I it's not a question on the whether it's right or it's wrong. I mean, it's absolutely right. So this is I've been in the industry 30 years myself. So, I can't say I've seen it get better. If anything, it's gotten worse. Not if anything, it has gotten worse. The facilities, the services available to especially over the road drivers. It's not better. So it's not better at all. And the training program, which I've been able to see the Offshift app now and whatnot, and I think it's wonderful. So how it applies and it's tailored to the approach of the day-to-day driver, and taking just a few steps every day, not literally, but just taking punching out that list on the daily basis for someone that's not typically doing anything physical, or not thinking about that on a day-to-day basis. They're trying to get their 500, 600 miles, whatever they need to get done on a daily basis. And then they're tired. And, typically in the past, you go in, grab some lousy food and go back out to the truck and roll into the sleep or go to bed. So,
yeah. Then we do it all over again.
Yeah. And then absolutely do it. Get up the next morning, drink a huge cup of coffee and lots of times, probably less now than before, but smoke your 2 packs or pack of cigarettes and roll it all over again. And that's the life of a driver many years ago. So, so the 61, I kind of labeled this on my notes as 61 gut punch. So when you go talk to people and say that, Project 61 is named after this statistic, lots of people don't know this number, right? Mm-hmm. So I didn't know this number until Jeremy, you called it out. I knew it was not a good number, but I didn't know it was 61. So how are people reacting when you share the 61 number with them?
Initial shock, because yikes. I know, kind of like you, it's bad. It's worse than most of us who aren't driving a truck, right? So, but then when you hear that, you're like, good grief. And then it usually starts to set in. You're like, I get it. It makes sense. And you understand. And first of all, when just over 50% of the trucking population smokes, they still smoke, right? Sure. You've got over 70%, overweight and obese. And Mark touched on some of the number of the percentage of diabetics and even just mental health. What is it was 6.3 times more depressed.
Truck drivers 6.2 times more likely to have depression than someone who works in an office. So yeah.
And all those things are all intertwined, and you're not surprised. And it's hard. I mean, look, it is a hard job. It's not something, I don't know that I could do it. I wouldn't want to, candidly. Right. I mean, it's because I know what the sacrifice is. And for me right now, again, raising 3 young kids, I want to be around, I want to be present and not just be here, but I want to be healthy. But that all said, there are opportunities for drivers to get better, to improve, to move that needle. But again, you got to be super intentional. And so much of that, in my opinion, is around food, nutrition, because that's the real fuel that you're putting in your body every day, multiple times a day. That is going to have a pretty significant impact. And you have more control over that than some of the other things. If you're driving 500 miles, 600 miles in a day, like you're not stopping a lot.
No, not at all. No, it's about not stopping.
Right.
So, I mean, that's what's engineered, right? You don't stop. So, and you have to run as hard as you can. So, and that if you do stop, you're hurting your pocketbook. So, yeah. Which is difficult, and that's unfortunately the way things are engineered. So, Mark, And you talked a little bit about what got you onto the driver point, or to what brought you into the industry idea. But was there a specific moment or aha thing that was, I gotta dig into this, or was it just a generality of everyone that was coming in the door?
So there was one driver in particular early on. So a couple of drivers I was working with in the clinic. One I worked with like 3 days a week for, I think it was like 2 months, helping them rehab after a total knee replacement. And I said, all right, hey, I want to dig deeper into this. Where do I go learn more about drivers? And he sent me down this rabbit hole of the trucking Facebook groups. And for someone who's never talked to a driver before, going to trucking Facebook groups was like the Wild West. I was like, oh, okay. These people have some strong opinions here. They're not afraid to tell you either. But I just kind of went out there. I sent a couple of posts out and was like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I want to learn more. I want to help drivers be healthier. And I met this one lady who's a truck driver. Her name's Blake, and we hit it off. And actually, her story and the reason why, the relationship I built with her is actually probably the reason why I'm standing here today. She joined trucking 8 years ago, became a team driver. Her first team driver, that our teammate that she was with, was a guy named George, and they hit it off immediately. And they actually ended up falling in love out on the road. And I was kind of in this process getting to know her because I was personal training her basically to get to know the lifestyle and helping drivers in that process. And they ended up getting engaged out on the road. And I started working with her and George as they were preparing for their wedding. And this was, 6 months into me getting into the trucking industry. And I remember it was like yesterday. They were making their final delivery 2 weeks before their wedding. They were out in California, and George was behind the wheel, fully loaded truck on the highway, and turned to Blake, who was in the passenger seat, and said, like, I don't know what is happening, but I need to pull over. And he was having a heart attack behind the wheel 2 weeks before his wedding, pulled over, had emergency surgery. Thank goodness they called 911. He went to the hospital. He had emergency surgery that night. And my jaw hit the floor when Blake told me that, because I'm working with them to prevent those types of things, and also help them look good on their wedding day as well, lose some weight and feel better too. But luckily, George was able to actually recover, and they caught it fast. They ended up getting married. My wife and I were 2 of 30 people at their wedding to kind of talk to you through like the type of relationship I still have with both of them. But that was kind of the first experience for me getting in the industry where I was like, whoa, something is different here. This like job is taking years off of these people's lives, impacting their health. And it really threw me deeper and deeper down this rabbit hole.
No, that's a great journey there. And unfortunately, that is exactly why you're doing what you're doing, is the story that you just called out. So, and I unfortunately have lots. I mean, I haven't been sitting next to someone that had that happen, but I don't have enough fingers and toes to count how many drivers that have worked for me over the years. That I'm sure, Jeremy, you've been in the game a long time too, where you have that story of that just happened, whatever event it is. So, and it's too early on. So, but
well, we at every single time we talk at an event, when we're speaking, one of the questions we ask is like, hey, who's a carrier? Raise your hand if you're a carrier in the audience. Keep your hand up if in the last year you have had a driver pass away who drives for you, and every single hand stays risen.
Yeah.
And it's just, what other industry is that a thing? And that's the problem.
Software. So strangely enough, so I don't know why, but yeah, but not to the point, I think it's a percentage, I used to run a fairly significant fleet, and we knew we were going to have X amount of incidents a year. It was just a ratio, right? And you didn't like it, but we knew it was going to happen. So to your point, how do you work towards making that ratio less? And just do the right thing. Part of it's just simply do the right thing. and create the right programs. And yeah, sure, there's a financial impact on your health insurance and across the board, but ultimately there's a human factor involved, and the overall cost of creating programs is fairly low when it comes to, does someone get to stick around a few extra years because they did the right thing. So with that being said, we're going to take a little break. We'll come back in about 2 minutes. If you have any questions for Jeremy or Mark, feel free to queue them up. When we come back, we'll talk more about what you can do in the truck, what companies can do, where Project 61 is going, and take things from there. So we'll see y'all in about 2 minutes.
If your fleet's downtime looks like chaos, you're missing out on GLCS. In the time-critical world of trucking and logistics, every minute counts. Meet GLCS, your expert partner in managed IT and technology services. We integrate seamlessly with your team, bringing seasoned IT professionals with deep trucking and logistics expertise. Imagine your software updates running smoothly, complex issues resolved quickly, and operations humming with efficiency. GLCS has your back. Our support doesn't just fix problems, it prevents them with our industry connections and proactive approach. We keep your trucks rolling and your brokers working. Think of us as the added resource your company needs to unleash its full potential. Visit glcs.net today and keep your business driving forward. GLCS, where efficiency meets expertise.
And we're back. So Project 61, I guess, if a driver wants to engage in some way, shape, or form, what's the best route to go about that with you? I mean, everyone kind of takes their health into their own hands lots of times, but they don't think about, hey, is there a specific, there's a couple folks that are out there doing these things, fitness guys. You guys are all involved with them. So, but ultimately, if they want to engage with Offshift or Project 61, how do they go about that? What's the best route?
So you can download our app. So we have a mobile app on any app store. It's called Offshift by Project 61. A driver can download it. It's completely free. They can participate in it, and there's no paywall or anything like that. It's available, and they've got personalized programs there. Our focus right now, because of the industry-wide opportunity, is we believe trucking companies have an opportunity to create an amazing environment within their fleet to get more drivers to participate, download the app, and join in the program, and also just make it a part of their culture, right? So we work with trucking companies. We call them Project 61 certified fleets. And what we can do within our program is create a team within our app. And so all their drivers who join, who are all on the same fleet, can be on their team and have, compete against each other in these challenges we're doing, and just create a community within each trucking company to, around health and wellness, and, feel not alone in this journey. And so that's really the two different ways that people interact with us, is either from a company perspective and then driving it down to get to their drivers, or drivers just joining individually on their own.
So I want to go down that path, both on the driver's side and then on the company side. But to think, okay, this is just another wellness app. Let's talk about the difference between this app and more of the movement, and how the difference between these apps are. And I mean, what you said, this is specifically tailored for drivers. So let's define how that works.
Yeah, so I can speak on that end, and I'll let Jeremy talk about like the overall movement that we're creating and going in the direction of the trucking industry. But specifically for drivers is, the two big things that I recognize through the last 5 years of working with thousands of drivers, from a health and wellness perspective and doing ride-alongs and all the craziness of just like getting to know trucking as much as I can outside of getting my CDL myself, was you got to make it time efficient, because time's the biggest barrier that drivers face. And then you also have to make it environment specific. So you need to meet them where they're at, and you cannot shame them for the fact that they end up at a random Love's truck stop with a McDonald's attached to it. And that's their options for food. And that's also their options for gym / getting some physical activity. And so the whole program that we've done is we've built the whole thing, and we say want to smack drivers in the face that like we built it for them and their lifestyle out there. And a couple of examples would be on the physical activity side of things. A general program would say, hey, truck driver, go find a gym that you have to park your truck at that's got truck parking. Go in there, spend an hour in there, do this whole workout. Go, I guess you get a free shower if you do that. Okay, that's a plus. But then get back in your truck, get back on the road, drive, or go hopefully find some truck parking somewhere. Super unrealistic for most drivers. And honestly, most drivers are not quote unquote gym people. So even if they had a gym available for them, they would not be lining up to say, I need to get in there. I want to participate in there. What we've found is what we do is we give them drivers 5 to 10 minute workouts. So being very time efficient, that they can fit it into these small pockets of time that they have throughout their day. And we show them how to do it inside the back of their truck, outside of their truck, or at home if they're on home time. So we've got videos that we filmed inside their truck in the environment, or outside of the truck, or in a living room, or at home. And we have drivers who are doing it, instead of scrolling on TikTok when waiting at a customer to get reloaded, they're doing a workout or a stretching routine in the back of their cab. Or, if they're on home time, they're doing it. And we've also have some drivers who are at the hotel, and they're doing it in the hotel, in their hotel room, and doing our at-home program. And so that's like an example on that end. On the nutrition side of things, we don't hand anyone a meal plan and say, hey, flip your whole lifestyle upside down. We're starting this massive diet tomorrow. Go in the pantry, like throw everything away. Like that's unrealistic, especially for drivers, but honestly, anyone. What we do is we take a habit-based approach, and we focus on 1 or 2 small changes that they can do anywhere. And then we educate them on how to do those habits at the truck stop, McDonald's, or restaurant attached to, or even how to prepare it in their truck or prep it at home to bring it in their truck. And so really trying to meet drivers where they're at, and just say, hey, we know there's some really unique barriers that you face as a driver. And there's also some lifestyle things that are out of your control. So we're not going to shame you for that, but we're going to come in and give you very tailored advice and some accountability and structure around how to implement a program that you can do regardless of where you drive or where you park.
And it's lifestyle, right? We're just trying to help them level up their lifestyle and make just better intentional decisions. Again, it doesn't have to be anything dramatic. It doesn't take dramatic. It just takes little incremental steps. And, we use the word intentional a lot and being mindful, right? Like just the importance of food, what you eat, those sorts of things are super important. But we haven't really touched on sleep a lot. And, you got a 10-hour window to get 7-8 hours of sleep. It's not happening. You're getting less than 5. Most the average truck driver gets, I think it's like 4.86 hours. It's not even 5. You can't sustain life like that. Like that is why you're cutting years off your life. You're eating poorly, processed foods, lots of sugar, especially liquid form. And then of course you're not moving enough and so on. So you got to be really, really intentional. And from a movement standpoint, I mean, you mentioned there are a few other, what we would call friends, partners in that are focused on trucking in the space, whether they're, trying to help address, diabetes or, some other issue. We're all on the same team, right? We're all trying to see that change. Now, our model is as a nonprofit, because we believe that the best way to really address this at scale is with this sort of program, and not only help the companies that are, going to raise their hand and willing to pay us something. But there are plenty of companies that are okay with and want to pay a for-profit company. Excellent.
Sure.
At the end of the day, the goal is moving that needle, and however we can get it done, like that's what we want. That's the mission. So it's exciting. And as I said earlier, like just being able to the amount of support that we have. I don't know exactly how many companies, it's over 90 that are sponsors just of the 61-day step challenge, including GLCS. I cannot tell you how rewarding that is in our position, because look, you got to work hard, and this is a long fight, and it's going to be, like you said, I don't know if it's a whole generation. I certainly hope not, but it's probably 5 to 10 years before we really start to see and notice a significant difference. But you got to start, and you can't get discouraged. And what helps us not get discouraged is the amount of support from everywhere. It's amazing, and I'm super, super grateful for that.
No, that's I can't imagine a world where you don't get supported for this. So, and I think there's people that are starting to sing more and helping to drum up that support too. So, I think we have some pictures of that, of you guys putting together those videos. So if we can roll a couple of them out, and if Mark or Jeremy, you guys want to tell me what's going on here. So,
yeah. So I mentioned earlier around how in our program, we have daily workouts that they can do in the back of their truck, outside of their truck, or on home time. And we actually, part of that support that we've been super grateful for is we've got companies who are like, hey, how can we help you improve your product, your programs that you do? And we worked with a company called Bulldog Media, and then also Liquid Trucking out of Omaha, Nebraska. And they had a couple of weeks ago, I flew out there, and they hired a media team and got some actors and actual drivers. And we've refilmed about 550 exercise demo videos.
Oh, wow.
Any exercise that you can even consider in the back of the truck, outside of their truck. And they also rented an Airbnb, and we filmed it right in the living room of Airbnb. And we're now in the process of editing those. And then they're going to be, there's going to be a new, our videos in the app will get a little bit of a facelift with some Project 61 branding, which we're really excited about. And so just like finding ways to improve the experience for the driver, because if you give them a better experience, a better product, then they're going to more likely to stick with it, more likely to really make those lifestyle changes. And then obviously the trickle down of that is more likely for that 61 number to change.
Yeah, absolutely. And, those videos are, I mean, that just attributes to the modern app, and having them be in the sleeper, I think, is even better. So, that creates, practical life. So instead of being somewhere else or using some sort of B-roll sort of scenario, I don't know what you had before, but absolutely.
We had some homemade videos from yours truly. I was the actor, the producer, the filmer, and the editor.
Fair enough.
So they are. So they definitely are getting an upgrade, and we're excited about that. And I think one of the other really big projects that we're excited about, talking in the same point of improving our mission and improving the overall experience for the driver, is something that we are working on with the next generation of trucking association. And I think the best way to explain what we're trying to do is very similar to what Truckers Against Trafficking has done, where they've built out curriculum that is a certification for drivers to learn how to human trafficking and the signs of what could go wrong out on the road. Well, we're doing that same concept, but for drivers' health. And so we actually got a grant from Pilot Flying J, and then also the ATA's Truck Cares Fund. Trucking Cares Fund. And we are building out the Project 61 next generation of trucking first driver health curriculum. And the goal of that is to have a video series that we can insert into every single CDL school across the country, and also every single LMS system, where trucking companies and CDL schools can use that to give drivers the baseline education of how to be healthier out on the road. And it's very driver specific. And it hopefully from a CDL school perspective gets drivers to know what they need to do before they get to day one behind the wheel. And I think that's going to be a huge opportunity for our movement and the opportunity of shifting that life expectancy number.
No, that's amazing. That's great. We're well aware of Next Gen Trucking and Lindsay Trent and everyone over there. They're a great group of people. Never get to spend enough time with them. I think the last time I saw, at ATA was the last time we saw Lindsay too. So, but yeah, that's wonderful that there's a team up there. So a good question is, how did you guys meet?
That is a good question. I think we just started seeing each other on LinkedIn. I think that's probably how we got to know each other before we got to know each other. But I definitely remember the first time Mark's name came up to me was Mark Colson, who's the president of the Alabama Trucking Association. Yeah. We were at an event together and we were talking about health. And, he's a pretty healthy guy. And he said, do you know a guy named Dr. Mark Manera? And I'm like, I don't, but I know of him because we're connected on LinkedIn. And I don't even know if we had even communicated yet. I don't think so. Probably post here or something, whatever. But I knew what he was about and liked what he was about. And so anyway, I think it was probably shortly after that. I don't even know if Mark Colson made a connection or what, but we just started engaging after that because we had a mutual person who I think, vouched, for each other. So that made it a lot easier. And then it was just easy because you both care about, it's really easy to find common ground when you have something that you're passionate about that you both care about. So, and that was probably in 2021 at around then.
Yeah, I think so. That was like very early on in me getting into trucking because I actually hosted a podcast with Mark Colson in the early days, and one of our guests was Jeremy. So I think that was also early spark as well. And then started to go Nate, just like you are well aware of just going to the circuit of all the conferences. And you start going to the circuit of conferences, you start running into very similar people who are also going to the same conferences, and just kind of really built the friendship over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Well, you start going to conferences, you're going to find Jeremy. So
yeah.
You'll probably be there too.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be there too. That's how we met. So that's how I met Mark too. So that's absolutely. So that's you can't knock conferences. You build your network that way. There's no doubt about it. So so you can name names if you feel it's appropriate, but can you share a story of a driver who's used this process, who's made significant changes? You talked about the team earlier, Mark, but someone who's made a significant change through these processes, who's used Offshift to change their life around, kind of your poster boy or girl for the program.
I'll give you a couple because they're short, quick answers. So the first one is a guy named Mark. He's got a good name as well, and he is an over-the-road driver he actually drives for a really large carrier across the country. We started working together. He was in our program maybe 20 months ago, 18, 20 months ago, a little under 2 years ago. And in the process, he drives OTR, hasn't stopped. We've helped him throughout this whole time driving. He's lost 135 pounds and 10 inches off of his waist.
Good for him.
It's a grown adult amount of weight, just shredded up. I joke that he jumps up in the truck and he just floats up there now that he's not carrying all that weight. But also same company. And actually, you all are people listening, and I'll name drop here. A driver who's on the American Road team. Her name's Gina Jones. Her and her husband, they both drive team for Warner, and they have been in the program for just under 2 years as well. And through that process, both have lost weight. Her husband's under 290 pounds for the first time in 20 years of his life, which is awesome. But the big thing this year that we were able to help them with, and I always use this as an example for drivers who say, I can't do this. This is not possible to exercise or do this out on the road, is both of them, while driving team OTR, trained and did our program, but also trained on top of our program to do a 50-mile march with Warner to for raising money for veterans' mental health. So they went out and trained, like rocked and went on hikes and marched and did all this stuff, and ended up doing a 50-mile march. I've never done that in my life. It's on my bucket list now because
over how long? Was it over?
It was a straight. It was a 50-mile straight.
That's wild. Yeah,
It took them over 24 hours. Yeah,
that's crazy. That's a haul. So
obviously, I think they stopped and had breaks and stuff like that. But it was but so that's like a great example of a driver who has done. I love people who do crazy, adventurous stuff, and especially for a great cause like adventurous mental health. But it was a great example of like, there's no excuses, right? There's difficulty and there's lifestyle things, but if you're intentional, like Jeremy said, you can do a whole lot of things without changing all of these variables. And I think that's something that's a mindset shift that a lot of people say grass is greener on that side. If only X, Y, and Z were different. Well, there's some things you can't control unless you change careers, right? Or something like that from a driver perspective. But there's a lot you can do without having to do that. And they're a great example. And then the last one is a guy named Joe. I always like his story because through our program, right now, a ton of drivers are jumping on Ozempic and getting on these GLP-1s, which are amazing. There's no shade on that. But through the lifestyle changes he was able to make with our program, he actually got off of Ozempic, got off of his blood pressure medication, and said they call it reversing his diabetes, which basically means with lifestyle and getting off of medication, he was able to control his A1C levels, his blood sugar levels, just by the lifestyle changes. And so he always says he loves his old man abs. That's his favorite part of it now. But regardless, I think that's like a great example of just because you're on these medications, just because you have these diagnoses doesn't mean that this is like a thing for life. And with the right lifestyle changes, follow your doctor's recommendations. You should stay on your medicine until your doctor says, hey, you're good to go, get off, or I think you're controlling it with your lifestyle. But that is a possibility to make happen. And that's something, if you're intentional and you push hard and you really want to make these changes, there's people out there and there's drivers out there who are making that happen.
And this isn't a full story, but I do want to throw this out there because this, Dr. Mark has been seeing this for a few years now. My first taste post acquisition of Offshift, we got an email. So, we were spreading the word about the acquisition and about Project 61 and the mission and so on. And an email came in. I think it must have been sent to info@project-61.org because I think Mark got it as well. And it says, I'm a truck driver, OTR, and my health is going downhill and fast. Please help. How do you not, when you get that message, a guy's raising his hand saying, hey, please, I need some help. And so we don't have a follow-up story from that yet, but we reached out to that driver right away. And I want to see what sort of progress we've made. I'd love to, it's only been a few months, so I'd love to see that, kind of where we are. Cause I just think it's a great story. If somebody's just willing to want to get better.
That there's not a clearer call for help than that. So, and that's exactly what you're here to do. So, I don't know if you could get a clearer call for that. So, so Jeremy, you've been in the industry as long as I have. You've been doing Project 61 now for a little over a year. What in the last year surprised you?
Well, I didn't know that I was going to have the opportunity to, team up with Dr. Mark and Offshift. So, that's the biggest thing. Because in my opinion, what I was originally thinking, and I even was, talking to Dr. Mark about this, is technology needs to be a foundational part of this movement because you're not going to be able to address 3.5 million drivers at scale without it. Right. So I was starting to already, sort of frame out in my mind what an app, is going to look like and stuff. And, as you're doing that, you're like, well, I'm just kind of doing a lot of the same stuff over here. Let's just start talking. And I think that just accelerated the progress that we have an opportunity to make significantly by probably a year or more anyway. And together is a lot better. And there's, I mean, as a founder, and I mean, being able to work closely with somebody who you genuinely like, who you know is a good human being, who's really passionate about what we're trying to solve, like that is uplifting. And I mean, because as you know, founder and the head, heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? And the founder is the most lonely role. And it's not lonely because we're together, we're partnering together, and we have so much support. It's not lonely. I didn't know that it would, that's probably my biggest surprise for 2025.
Great. So looking 5 years down the road, Mark, if you want to take the answer, I'll get both of you, if you both want to answer this together, however it works. Looking 5 years down the road, what's the plan?
Yeah, I think for us right now, the plan is, I think we have a pretty clear path of Project 61 is just a no-brainer part of the health and safety stack of every single trucking company across North America. There's no cost, and we've just continued to increase over the next 5 years, the accumulation of iterations on improving and becoming the go-to best driver health resources and software tools and programs out there. And the trickle down of that is a whole lot of drivers who are getting healthier and a shift in the culture of the industry to say, hey, this is just kind of how it is, to no, this is not. See what Project 61 is doing, and you can, be a part of this movement and be a part of this culture of, making trucking a healthier industry to work in.
And I'd add to that, just imagine walking in to a truck stop and you know where to go, because there's a whole section over here that's all Project 61 sort of approved, if you will, sort of, food and options. And it's going to be mostly real human being food, not a bunch of processed, fake stuff. But we want to make it easy and accessible. And as I've talked to like truck stop operators who are very supportive of drivers and their health, their issue is always, we provide these options, they don't buy it.
Right.
We Project 61, it's our obligation to educate, right? But then we need to and keep banging that drum. But then we also need to make it easy and accessible and affordable. And so that's where when you think 5 years down the road, I envision being able to walk into any truck stop and saying, where's the Project 61 stuff? And you immediately know, okay, I feel good. I'm going to be able to get this stuff. Is probably subsidized to some degree, so it's very affordable. That's a future I would embrace.
No, I like that thought. I mean, so we do a lot of shows, as we talked about, and some of those shows we end up road tripping to. And so when the team's with me and I have a pickup, and so we'll load the pickup up, but specifically I try to stop at truck stops on the way. And as a former driver, the last time I touched a truck, and I love trucks, I absolutely love trucks. I would drive tomorrow if I had the time and well, not the ability, because I can still drive. If I had the time, I would drive. And I know people think I'm crazy for saying that if you talk to drivers, but it's been well over a decade since I've been able to drive. But we'll specifically go into truck stops, and it gets called out on what's available in them. There's not any good food here. There's not any good options. You get fast food and that's it. And I don't really eat a lot of fast food, if any at all, as do several other people on my team. So it's very selective when it comes to that. So it is interesting. So it'd be nice to see that vision come to a realization. So gentlemen, the hour went by. Go ahead.
The only thing I'm going to add to that is the only thing is we're going to push hard for that future, and that's going to happen. We're going to get better food options. But in the meantime, what I think is very easy for a driver to do is to use that as an excuse of, well, I can't do anything about it. I guess poor me. I guess I might as well just get the Big Mac and large fries and go back to my truck and go for it. And we're going to give them the resources to say, here's the healthiest option anywhere you stop. And if you pick the healthiest option anywhere you go versus the standard or the worst option, you're looking at, a totally different person 20 years down the road, or even 5 years down the road. So it's that combination, right? And meeting people where they're at.
To your point, educating on how to select from that menu is important. And I have no idea. I don't go there very often, but when you have no other choice, you can educate on how to modify what you're ordering to make it more beneficial to you, or just selecting the right thing. So yeah, I'm in agreement on that. And we're in full support too. So I think we do need to probably talk further organization to organization to see what we can do to help promote you at our customer base too. So that's something we'll follow up with on this too. And I really appreciate you guys coming on today. The hour went by super fast. We'll probably see you coming up at conferences in the future, but I'm not at any for a little while, so I'm happy about that. I just got off my last plane of the year last night. So, which is why I was scrambling here today, trying to get everything back together. So, but Jeremy, Mark, how can people find you?
Project-61.org, our website. Lots of opportunities to find how you can support. Definitely take a pledge, a trucker health pledge. Take that if you care about this issue and agree with it. Doesn't mean anything. You're not having to spend any money, but it just says, hey, I support this and I want to help be part of the solution. That's one thing. Download the app and join us. Join the community of people just taking health a lot more seriously, because we've got a lot of things worth living for. And it's not just, as Dr. Mark said earlier, your career shouldn't define, your life.
Dr. Mark, you got anything to add to that?
Find us on any social media as well, and we're pretty active on LinkedIn. So if you find us there, that's probably the best place, especially Jeremy and I's personal accounts.
Appreciate it. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, guys. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. If you're still listening right now, you don't get to pretend that this is someone else's problem. If you own a trucking company, this is about the people who carry your revenue. If you're in dispatch, safety, HR, billing, this is about the names that are on your screen or the people that you chat with on the phone daily. If you're in tech, this is about the human beings on your screens that you reference or on your slide deck, and really the customers of your customer. We can't keep saying drivers are essential and then act surprised when they're broken by 50 and gone by 61. That's not a mystery. That's a choice that we have made year after year by putting miles, margin, and convenience ahead of health, sleep, and sanity. So here's the truth. You don't have to fix everything by Friday. But you do have to move one policy, one habit, one conversation, one program that says your life matters more than this. So as we close this episode out and you walk back into your day, ask yourself this simple question. If every driver on your team lived the life your culture encourages, do you like where that road ends? If the answer is no or maybe, that's good, because that means that you're awake and aware. So now go do something about it. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time, drive forward with purpose and innovation. Thanks for watching.